Lightweight EMTBs just got a little more wild with the Bulls Wild Flow EVO RS. We are checking out this EMTB that sits right around 40 pounds, offers the Fazua Evation motor with 55 Newton meters of torque, a 250 watt-hour battery, and a litany of really good specs on a bike that is under 6K. It's a full carbon frame from Bulls, full suspension, 120 millimeters of travel. Overall, it is a highly competitive bike in an area of the industry that continues to grow, those super light EMTBs that more and more people seem to be interested in. We're going to check out this bike, talk about the good stuff, talk about the stuff that could be a little bit better, and how it compares to other super light, full suspension EMTBs. Before we continue though, do me a favor, come on, subscribe to the Fly Rides Electric Bike channel. This is probably the 5th time you've seen this face. Don't you want to see more of it? Click subscribe, hit the bell so that you know when I'm doing a new video and you can learn more about EMTBs, which is what we all want, just to live a life of learning. Because knowledge is power. Let's break into the review of the Bulls Wild Flow EVO RS. So, time to separate the guys and the gals because it's time for Specs Ed. Let's talk about specs, baby.
Let's talk about specs, baby.
Starting off, as I am wont to do, with the drivetrain, we have got a Shimano Dior XT 11-speed derailleur on an 11 to 46 tooth in the back. That is going to be a good amount of climbing power on a very good derailleur. So the Shimano Dior XT has set the industry standard for years. It is probably my favorite derailleur for mountain bikes, and an 11 to 46 tooth cassette is plenty of climbing power. Of course, these super light bikes often come with kind of featherweight motors. You've got the Fazua Evation motor, which is 55 Newton meters of torque, kind of a lot for a super light bike. When you compare it to other super light bikes, we'll do that later, but it's 250 watts, 250 watt hours. So you've got some good range on this and some good power. When you pair that with that drivetrain, you shouldn't have trouble getting up too many hills. If you're concerned about the smaller watt hours, one of the main benefits of the Fazua Evation motor is that it's pretty easy to carry spare batteries. They're about the size of a water bottle. If you did want to carry some spare batteries along, the Wild Flow EVO RS is definitely ripe for that kind of usage. Really nice brakes on this, if a little bit overpowered. You've got Magura MT5 hydraulic disc brakes on 180 millimeter rotors front and rear. Now, I always will take more stopping power over less, so I really like having this Magura MT5s on here. Really nice job from Bulls because I think a lot of companies probably would have done Magura MT4s to save themselves a little bit of money. So this is going to be more of an XC style bike with 120 millimeters of travel front and rear. You've got the Fox 34 float rhythm up front and a Fox float DPS in the rear. I would say this is about the type of suspension you would expect to see on a bike of this level, again running at $58.99. That XC suspension partners with some XC geometry. It is a 74-degree seat tube angle and a 68-degree head tube angle. You've got 29er wheels on this XC bike, which is pretty much what you would expect to see. I'm glad they did the 29ers instead of the 27.5 because it really helps with those single track flowy areas, gaining and maintaining speed, but the tires are wide enough to get you through some rock gardens. The tires are 2.35 inches wide on knobby nicks from Schwalbe. Finally, I gotta feature this. This is a fully carbon frame. That's what keeps the bike so lightweight. I think it would be a wasted opportunity not to do this, but again, I do think a lot of companies would have been like, well, we already did the Fazua motor, so we can just do aluminum. But Bulls is setting you up with a carbon frame, carbon cranks, a lot of carbon components on this to keep this bike down pretty close to that 40-pound weight, which is kind of like the standard for really super lightweight bikes. So really well done by Bulls on this. The specs are incredible, and I think the weight speaks for itself. 41.5 is their listed weight. It's going to vary a little bit by size, but I think this bike is really well outfitted and the geometry is good as well. But Hector took this bike out for a ride, so we will see what he thought about it and watch him ride it a little bit. Let's go do that right now. So I guess one of the main things we want to be focusing on with this Bulls is how it's climbing. How's it going so far, Hector?
So far, so good. We got our first initial climb out of the way. Climbed very well. I am in the highest level just because it was quite steep, but made it up the hill with no problem.
Fazua Motor offering 250 watts. Cool, we'll see how it keeps going.
Yeah, she's solid.
We got a couple other riders out here today, so if it can keep up with a EVO with 90 newton meters of torque and an 85 newton meter torque EP8, I'd say that's a definite win. Let's keep riding that Bulls.
All right, feels real smooth now. Torque's doing a lot of the work at the moment. Let's go ahead and climb up this not too steep slab. Motor's working. I'm at the highest level right now, but it feels comfortable. It feels great. All right, gear down a little bit, or gear up, I should say. Follow that line. Oh yeah, nice little descent there. You can see the rocks. This thing's quite bumpy, but the Wildflow is tackling it very well. Said it has 120 millimeters of travel. It's really doing a very good job of handling all the bumps. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and test the climbing of this Bulls Wildflow EVO. I'm gonna go ahead and lock up the suspension, make it nice and firm. Should get into a nice comfortable gear. We'll talk about its climbing capabilities. So that, I'm not sure if you can tell with the GoPro, was quite steep, having to gear down a little bit. But this Fazua Motor is doing very well. Plenty for Rocky Peak, getting me up and over these steep, bumpy climbs. Emphasis on the bumpy.
We've been on probably more intense trails than this bike has ever really been on. So what are you thinking?
Oh, I love this bike. To be honest, it's somewhat of a one-of-a-kind bike. It doesn't have that much power in terms of motor, but that's really all you need. And it's handling all of this rocky terrain we're throwing at it. I mean, these are true enduro trails that we're putting the 120 millimeter travel bike to the test, and it's holding up very well, as I think it's excelling in it. The Fox 34 fork, the Fox rear suspension, as well as the powerful 4-piston brakes that it's coming with. The geometry is quite, it's still an XC geometry, so the head-to angle isn't that far forward or raked out, but it is handling very well with these 29er tires.
So, seemed like Hector enjoyed the ride out on that bike. Not too much of a surprise. Hector loves riding acoustic, and this is about as close as you are going to get to acoustic weights while still having the power of an EMTB behind you. But I did promise you I was going to talk a little bit about this bike in comparison to bikes like the Specialized Turbo Levo SL and maybe the Orbea Rise series. So the Specialized Turbo Levo SL is a great bike, there's no doubt about it. It is a super lightweight bike and of course offers that customized motor from Specialized. But the main difference here is that you're going to be getting similar components on their Specialized Turbo Levo SL comp. That's kind of the base model of these SLs, but it's going to be for about $1,000 more. So it's definitely nice on the SL to have an integrated motor and battery and kind of not have to worry about that aspect of it. You do have to consider the fact that you'll be spending about $1,000 more for components that are sometimes only as good as the Bulls Wildflow EVO RS, and in some cases not quite as good as the Bulls Wildflow EVO RS, for $1,000 more. Similarly, the Orbea Rise series starts at $7,000 as well. It is a Shimano EP8, which is a more powerful motor, pretty significantly than the Fazua Evation motor, but they don't even offer you the chance to look at how much the bike weighs on the Orbea website, which I thought was a little frustrating. You know, they designed their bikes to be super light, so it would be nice to see how super light that bike is. I just think, you know, it's a little bit disingenuous, but that's neither here nor there. The point for me is still that it is going to be $1,000 more. And that is going to be with, again, similar suspension and then components like in the drivetrain that just quite frankly aren't as good as the Shimano Dior XT that comes on the Bulls Wildflow EVO RS. So it's all stuff to consider. If the $1,000 is just kind of nothing to you, then definitely consider those bikes. But I really think the Bulls Wildflow EVO RS offers a great cross-country ride experience, 120 millimeters of travel to get you going on single track, pretty much anywhere you would want to go. If you're a single track rider or more of a casual rider, you like some nice flowy stuff, but for a lot cheaper than most other super light bikes in the industry right now. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Fly Rides electric bike channel. Leave a comment below. Let me know any other super light bikes you've been looking at, and we can compare them to the Bulls Wildflow EVO RS. Thanks for watching, you guys, and until next time, enjoy the ride.